Your entire life, the human experience has been about us, humanity. We are the most dominant creatures on Earth, and there's no competition. No creature smarter or more technologically advanced. We've sent probes into space and studied the stars, and our sciences have created wondrous things that early man would struggle to understand. But the universe is big, terrifyingly so. And to put our achievements into the true picture, here's a little thought experiment. Imagine if the difference in intelligence between a chimpanzee and a human is only 1%. That with you and everything you know, there's only 1% difference in terms of intelligence between you and a chimpanzee. But now imagine that another creature lurking out there in the depths of space is 5% smarter up the same scale. That even the greatest revelations and epiphanies that humankind has ever made is nothing out of the ordinary for these beings. They probably couldn't think down to your level. Imagine the things they could make or do, that we as a dominant species on this planet would regard as magic. Imagine they were real. There's a level of fear that's so primal we don't experience it as the most powerful beings on our planet. But in the face of the universe, it's difficult to continue being so confident when there could be creatures that regard us as ants in terms of intelligence when compared to them. Cosmic horror, or Lovecraftian horror, is the feeling that opener should be giving you. The odd fear of the unknown, being small and diminutive, in the face of something large and powerful beyond our comprehension. H.P. Lovecraft is the man behind cosmic horror, or Lovecraftian horror as it's often called. His work has been adapted into many things from its original source material, and whilst a lot of them are unique and interesting, there's a lot of room for more interpretations on it in the video game medium. But first, let's talk about what cosmic horror is. Lovecraft once wrote what he thought constituted cosmic horror, and it boils down to this. A helpless protagonist in the face of an incomprehensibly large and terrifying being, so old and unfathomable that its presence defies everything we know about existence. Something so unknown and unknowable that it makes humanity seem small and powerless to defy it. So much so that it drives the people discovering it to insanity. Basically, a fear of the unknown with a large helping of existential dread. There are other tropes like fish people and slime that characterize Lovecraft's work, but like blood and bones in horror games, they're not essential, but it's not uncommon to find them there. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown is something that can be difficult to pull off, but it's not impossible to achieve in video games. Being presented with a monster so horrifying that its appearance sends shivers down your spine is pretty common, but to be truly afraid of the unknown, it has to be unknown. A good start is the lights in the woods at night at Darkwood, the brain of Mensis in Bloodborne's Dark Void. These things raise more questions than they answer, and there's an harrowing type of fear you can associate with them. Everyone is more or less susceptible to these things than other people. I found the brain of Mensis fascinating, but the lights in the woods unsettling. But one of my friends stated the opposite. I myself find things with a visible form to be less frightening than the invisible, like the force that makes people face the walls in the Blair Witch Project. I don't know what it is, but I hope to never meet it. Obviously, the less you know about something, the more wary you become of it. In the film Prince of Darkness, there's a green swirling tube that manages to be menacing because it seems to be clearly powerful, but no one in the film knows much of anything about it. But you feel they shouldn't be messing with it. Fear is a primal instinct, and these clearly powerful artifacts open doors that sometimes can't be closed, which is frightening. In the immortal words of a man about to be vaporized in the War of the Worlds,
"Don't fool around with something when you don't know what it is."
We're friends! Yeah!
a fear of the unknown is ultimately a feeling. You can't always rationalize it or gain an understanding of something that's going to alleviate that feeling. Through repetition, things like the mysterious lights in the woods, the glass jar, and even the brain of Mensis will lose their fear, as eventually you'll become acquainted with them enough through seeing them over and over. The true horror that lies with all cosmic horror adaptations is the visual medium is just not suited for cosmic horror's most iconic move. There's an inherent fear of the things that you can't comprehend or understand what you're seeing, and luckily, throughout your daily life, you're unlikely to encounter such things. The indescribable holds a special place in cosmic horror as the true unknown revealing itself to a character, best explained in Lovecraft's story, The Unnameable. It was everywhere. A gelatin, a slime, yet it had shapes. 1,000 shapes of horror beyond all memory. There were eyes and a blemish. It was a pit, the maelstrom, the ultimate abomination. You can't show things on a screen that are meant to be indescribable. A lot of the descriptive text in Lovecraft's work will paint a differing image in the mind of every reader, as I'm sure that quote did to you. Everyone's imagination will create something different. In a similar way, I recently talked about a game called Dagon on Patreon, which is an interactive retelling of Lovecraft's story of the same name. It's essentially a reading of the story with a visual environment to explore. If you've never read the story, it's an interesting take on the experience, but if you have, then it'll bring up conflicting ideas in your mind. Whilst the descriptive text will describe even something as terrestrial as a black void, the game will show you someone else's interpretation of it, and it's this disconnect that can make reading his work more powerful than seeing it, but to a much smaller degree. Even with a medium as open and expressive as video games, where you can create anything you can imagine, the human mind is the real limitation. You can't make the indescribable. You can say what it looks like, but the second it has a form, the power it once had is gone. This applies to everything. The movie The Mist attempts to obscure its horror in the eponymous mist, but the creatures you see in it are tangible even if they're weird. Annihilation's otherworldly beings have an abstract shape, even if it's difficult to describe, you can see it. And whilst it might leave you speechless, it's not indescribable. Really, the best way to portray the indescribable is to experience it secondhand. From the words of someone who did see it, their experiences of the unknown and the unfathomable and the subsequent madness. But we'll get to that later. What I think is the best way to portray the unknown in the visual medium is best done in the same way the Blair Witch was done in the Blair Witch Project, to exist ever so slightly out of sight, but to be unquestionable in its existence. Something chased them through the woods. Something made them stand in the corner of that room, and you will never know what it was. Cosmic horror is an opening of the eyes to see the impossible, but while seeing is believing, it's the understanding part where things become truly fascinating and disturbing. This may be disappointing to learn that this is just part 1, but the script is so long and the task so big that I decided to split it into parts to help focus on each part whilst also providing content. I want to say a big thank you to the patrons, and if you're interested in seeing some more Bloodborne, then there's a video up on Patreon if you're so inclined to support the channel. If you just want to chat movies and games, then we've been doing a lot of that lately on Discord, and all the links will be in the comments. Here's the movie credits, and I hope I got away with using these. Anyway, thank you for watching and being patient. This stuff takes time, and I hope it was worth the wait.